I'm 3 books behind schedule. Oh my god. Hello, how are you? I'm Julia, and for this video, I'm going to be talking about the last couple of books that I've read and the books that I've tried to read. The last I posted was a month ago. I actually think it's been longer than a month. I think it's been like 6 weeks, but I had COVID for the first time since it all happened, since it all started in 2020, so I feel like that's good. It's been 3 years, and I just got it. So I had COVID. I was really tired. That was like my only symptom, because I was really tired, and then my ear felt flooded. Like it felt, you know, when you go swimming and you get like water in your ear, clogged, I guess. And that didn't go away for a couple of days, so that sucked. But that and like a stuffy nose. I just felt like I had a really bad cold. But other than that, I was fine. But then I also, after, like, while I still had COVID, I had a really bad asthma attack. Like, so bad I had to go to the ER. And that lasted for like 3 weeks almost a month, because I still kind of have it. I still have like trouble breathing sometimes. But they gave me a stronger inhaler, so that's great. But I want to talk about some books now. I don't know what it is. I've just been in a slump, and it sucks because I'm a mood reader. I don't know how people who like pick a TBR and like stick with it, because damn, I envy you. But I just can't. Very few things have like caught my interest recently. I've gone to the bookstore a ton. I've downloaded a shit ton on my Kindle. I started Throttle last night. I can't remember. It's on my Kindle, and I also have the paperback, but I started that. I read the prologue, and that was it. I haven't read in a minute. Well, that's not technically true, but I haven't finished something in a minute, I guess, which is really frustrating. I'm going to talk about the books that I have finished. The first one is Beautiful Disaster by Jamie McGuire. I buddy read this with one of my best friends, because our other best friend read it when she was like 14, and she was like, it got me into romance. Very Tumblr-esque. I get the hype of it. There is so much space. I'm sorry, but I'm in my bed and not standing. So this follows Abby, and she is a freshman in in college, and there she meets Travis, and I don't know his name. Travis's cousin. I think his name is Asher or something. I can never remember anyone's name. Shepley. I knew it was something. So she goes to a underground fight, Abby does, with America and Shepley, and there Travis punches someone and she gets blood on her sweater, so he's instantly in love, and then that is the start of their extremely toxic relationship. This was terrible. I have nothing good to say about it. There's nothing good to say about it. It was like a train wreck. So I guess that's good. I don't know, because I continued. I finished it. But it wasn't good. The writing was awful. The characters are extremely one-dimensional. And all of them sucked. Every single one of them. The only person that I actually liked was Kara. And she's in it for maybe 2 seconds. And it's Abby's roommate. And I remember there's a group on Facebook, and someone was talking about this, and they were like, people were in the comments like, don't read this book. The author is a white supremacist. And I was like, yeah, it's shit. She's shit. I was like, the only like likable character was Kara, and the girl was like, who's Kara? And I was like, it was her roommate. The only reason I liked her was because she just shit on Travis and Abby. They were both awful, but so was America. Shepley kind of had, like, a little bit of something, but, like, he also didn't help the situation. Like, he got really mad at Travis because he started seeing Abby, but not really seeing Abby, and he didn't want Abby and Travis's relationship to mess up his relationship with America. I didn't really get it, but, you know, he clearly had his reason. There was a scene in this, though, that was, like, very graphic to me, where they sit at lunch together all the time. Like, they always have the same lunchtime. Like, they're always there at the same time. I thought that was, like, a high school thing. I don't know. Like, in college, I feel like everyone has different classes, so everyone goes to lunch, if they even have, like, a meal plan to go to lunch, at different times. Like, I've never seen anyone go to lunch at the same time as their friends all the time. I thought that was weird, but one day they're sitting with the football players, which you wouldn't think that Travis would sit with the football players, but he does. And someone makes a joke about sleeping with Abby. It wasn't funny, but she's like, yeah, kick his ass. And he beats the shit out of him in the lunchroom, like in the cafeteria, in front of everyone, and no one stops him. No one is like, yo, Travis, not a good idea. And the ending, the Vegas scene. This whole book was just, it was a wild ride. It was terrible. I have nothing good to say about this one, but I do have the other book and his point of view, which the next book I read is The Words by Ashley Jade. This one I actually read in the hospital. So I started it and I was like, like, I didn't really mind it. I don't know how far I got into it before I went to the hospital, but I brought my Kindle and I read a good chunk of it while I was there, and considering it's a thicken, I was pretty happy with that. I don't think I read any of it, like, paperback. I think I read it all on my Kindle, because the night that I came home from the hospital, I couldn't sleep because I couldn't breathe, and, so I just read, and I think I got, like, 70% into it that night, but, this follows Phoenix, and one day I'll remember everyone's name. What the hell is her name? Lennon. Phoenix and Lennon. Phoenix and Lennon, they meet in high school, and she is kind of she's the plus size girl that doesn't really have many friends, or friends at all, if I remember correctly, and, people just kind of, they bully her, and they're mean to her, and I think it's Sabrina, she's a bitch, and she's, like, extra mean to her for no reason, and Phoenix is, like, the cool guy that everyone wants to know and everyone wants to be friends with. So she starts tutoring him, and he's like, I don't want anyone to know that you're tutoring me, and she finds out that he's dyslexic. So she starts helping him. He passes the test. He kisses her. But, like, they get into an argument about something. They get into an argument because he's sleeping. She walks in on Phoenix and Sabrina having sex in the music room. And she's like, we're friends, right? And he's like, well, yeah. And she's like, well, friends shouldn't be sleeping with friends' bullies. And he's like, you're right. And he, like, cuts contact with Sabrina, which props to him for that. And then she shares with him that she writes music because her dad is actually, like, a super famous songwriter, hence her name Lennon. John Lennon. That's the first part of this book. And then we jump forward 4 years. So he's 22. I think they're both 22. But we actually jump forward like 4 months and find out that, well, they start dating. This is a hot mess, I'm sorry. they start, like, dating, and they've been together for a day, and he has, like, a performance where there's gonna be an agent to see if they want to sign them, and so he doesn't have anything written, like, original, and so in order to get her to leave the performance at the bar, he pretends, or she doesn't know that he pretends, but I think it's Sabrina. I can't remember her name. It doesn't matter. He has a girl leave and his zipper's down. And so she's like, what the heck? And she leaves. And then he steals her song. And then 4 months later, she hears it on the radio and she's like, so jump forward 4 years. Phoenix is not doing well. He is doing great in, like, the music industry, but he's an alcoholic. I actually don't really think he's an alcoholic, and I'll get into that, but basically their manager goes to Lennon, who is, like, struggling. She dropped out of college to take care of her dad, who has early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. I'll find out. But he has one of those things. He's, like, forgetting his memories. I think it's Alzheimer's. But he's forgetting everything. He doesn't really remember who she is. So she quits school and she goes home and she starts working at a strip club as a bartender. And we find out that she's gone from, like, a size 16 or 18 to, like, a size 10. So, like, she's lost a ton of weight, and I guess it makes her more, like, I don't know. I thought that part was dumb. I didn't really like that, but it's not really brought up much more. So their manager comes and he's like, I need you to be Phoenix's sober companion. And she's like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, I'll give you $100,000. And she's like, that's not enough. They agree on, I think, like, $300,000, and she ends up doing it, and it's basically them just, like, secretly sleeping together because he's gone through, like a ton of sober companions. He ends up sleeping with all of them, and she's not supposed to sleep with him, but she does. And it's kind of enemies because she's not particularly fond of him. Like, he stole her music, and he's angry at her for some reason. I don't know why, because he doesn't really have any reason to be angry with her. Maybe he's just angry. I don't know. But there's so much that happens in this book. It's so long. There's so much. And, like, we find out, like, his dad is an abusive dick. And, like, there's just so much that happens. He has a sister. Like, a random sister. Because his mom was gone. So she comes to him and she's like, I'm your sister. And he's like, what? And she's like, no, legit. Like, I'm your sister. And so that happens. There's just so much that happens. And George is there. We do not like George. But anyway, I was going to say that I don't think he's actually an alcoholic. I don't know why he necessarily drinks like he does. Maybe because he, like, just thinks that, like, that's the life of, like, a rock star. But, once Lennon gets there, he kind of quits, like, cold turkey. Like, and he doesn't really, like, he's not doing anything crazy. He's not doing any drugs. He's not drinking. So it's not, like, I didn't think it was a huge deal. I just think he was just dealing with the repercussions of the decisions that he has made. So yeah, I thought this was okay. I think I gave it 3 stars. It's not the greatest ever, but it was dramatic and it kept me interested. I don't think these characters were a lot more, I thought they were a lot better. I thought there was, like, a lot of, I don't know, I think there was a lot of growth with Lennon. I don't know if there was much growth with Phoenix, possibly. I don't know. There's a lot of side stories happening. There's a spin-off. This was also, I don't think it was necessarily a train wreck, but there was just so much happening that there's no possible way that you can remember everything that happened. And, like, how it all happens. And it was a lot. So I thought it was okay. I did whip through it, and that's what I love about that. I also want to say that I think that their relationship when they were teens was better than their relationship when they were adults. It just felt more healthy. Not saying that their like relationship when they're on tour was like unhealthy, but there's a lot more going on, and it's very back and forth, and I just like their relationship better when they were teens, and I kind of wish that there was more of that, because I think it's only like 140 pages of this 650 page book of them being teens, and then it jumps forward. I say teens and it's like, it sounds bad, but they were 18. And yeah, that's how I felt about that's just a little added comment. Next, I read on my Kindle the Elsie Silver books that are going crazy on TikTok right now. I read the first 2. There's 3 out, and then the 4th one comes out in June, I think. So I read the first one. I think that's Powerless? No. Let me look. Flawless by Elsie Silver, which follows Willa or Summer. Summer and what is his name? Flawless follows Summer and Rhett. Summer works at her dad's company, which is a management company, and Rhett is a bull rider. So she's had a crush on Rhett since she was like 15. She used to like have his posters up on her walls and stuff. And Rhett comes in one day because he's a bull rider, and he said something that he doesn't like milk. He's like, milk is gross. But they catch it on camera, and people are furious. Like, people are so upset because he said he doesn't like milk. And people are like, you literally live on a farm. Like, it's honestly hilarious. And they're like, you literally live on a farm. Like, how can you not respect, like, how can you not like milk? And he's like, listen, I respect farmers. I respect the work that they do and everything, but I just, like, don't like milk. So he has to, like, come out with an apology, and in order for him to, like, go on the rest of his tour and possibly get his sponsorships, like, not lost, or not lose his sponsorships, he is given a babysitter so that he doesn't do anything bad. So in comes Summer, and her dad is like, you're gonna go with him. You're gonna make sure that he does all of his interviews. You're gonna make sure that he doesn't go home with any women. You're gonna make sure that he, like, does nothing wrong. And she's like, okay. He's pissed. She's not super happy about it, but she goes, she's on the farm for a little bit, and then he has to do the rest of his tour in order for him to get to the championship. And he's like 32 or something, 32 or 33, which I guess is kind of old in, like, bull riding. I have no idea, but he's sore. His family doesn't like it. Yeah, they fall in love. Shocker. I really liked this. I thought it was funny. I thought it was good. I liked the build-up. I really liked Rhett, and I really liked Summer. I thought they were great. Her sister, Winter, terrible. But understandably terrible. And then we kind of, like, get into, I think his name's Ed, but Summer's ex, who has clearly done a number on her, because when she was a child, she has a heart condition, and he was her doctor. And you can see where that's leading to. So, yeah. And the twist at the end with that was wild. I was like, oh, I did not see that coming. It was funny, too. There's a scene in the beginning where she's at the ranch with Rhett, Cade, Bo, and Jasper. So, super fun. And Rhett goes to a table with, like, these women, and they're sitting elsewhere. They're sitting on like a couch, and Summer is like, I can't have him over there, like I have to get him away from them because he can't go home with any of them. Like he can get in trouble. Meaning I can get in trouble. And his brother Bo is like, I'll get him to the table. And she's like, okay. So they call the waitress over, and he's like, Bo is like, I want you to send over a milk drink. I think it's like rum and milk. I don't know what that's called. And she's like, okay. So he sends it over, and she brings it over to him, and he's like, I didn't order this. And she's like, yeah, someone else ordered it for you. And then she goes back, and they give him a milkshake, and then they give him something else. They give him like 4 or 5 drinks that contain milk, and he's furious. And all of his brothers and Summer are cracking up. And one of the girls at the table is like, he doesn't like milk. And it is so funny. And he gets over to the table, and he's like, why did you do that? She's like, I had to get you out of there. Like, I could have gone over there and made a scene, but I didn't. And I really loved them. I thought they were super cute. I loved it. I don't know, maybe it was like the cowboy aspect of it. I thought it was super fun. It was a super fast, super fun read, and I really enjoyed it. I also I think his name's Harvey. Their dad, Harvey, is fantastic, and I love him. Cade was a little moody in this one. I mean, he's moody in his book as well, but he was a little moody. Bo is not in it much, but he's like the fun-loving dude, and then Jasper is very like quiet and off to the side and doesn't really talk and like hides his head, or hides his face, like always has a hat on. He's an NHL player. But yeah, I loved that one. And then Heartless is Cade and Willa. Willa is Summer's best friend. We don't really get to know her much in the first book, but she works at a bar, and she's the bartender for her brother's bar. And he's decided to like redo his bar, like remodel. And so she doesn't really have anything to do for the summer, so she goes to visit Summer, and she's like, Cade is looking for a nanny, and all of the nannies, like all of the women that apply for the job are basically just trying to sleep with him. And he's like, none of these people are good enough to watch my kid. And Summer is like, Willa, you should do it. And she's like, I don't take care of children. And so the book starts with them like meeting in a coffee shop, and her underwear falls out of her purse, and she's like, oh, keep it. It's really funny. And then they meet, and she becomes the nanny, and it was super cute. I also really loved this one. I personally don't mind children in books. I know it's like a huge ick for some people, but I feel like if children are written correctly, like at that age, because I feel like sometimes authors like write a 7-year-old and they talk like they're 12 or 15, and it's like, I don't like this. Write a child age appropriate. I don't understand why that's so hard. But she did a great job, and I really loved it. The kid is super cute, and the relationship between Summer and the kid is adorable. I cannot remember his name. I really need to work on this. But yeah, and then her and Cade was so good. I loved them so much. Like, she really brings out like the childness in him, and he's been so like closed off and like I don't want to say like angry at the world, but like he's a single dad, and he works on a farm with like a ton of cowboys, and he's doing a lot of it by himself. Like his dad helps out a lot, and so does Summer and Rhett, but he is alone a lot of the time. But I thought they were super cute and I loved them. And Summer's like absolute like mama bear love for the kid is just fantastic. And I thought it was very realistic. Like, I was a nanny and I just, like, I love kids and I don't even have to know them for very long and I'd be like, I will fight you. Like, I will fight someone to protect this child. So yeah, I really loved that. I don't know, I guess I thought that the ending, spoiler alert, let's skip a little bit if you don't want to know, but she ends up pregnant. I personally don't really mind a pregnancy trope. I know that also gives people the ick, but I feel like if it's done correctly or like if it's done in an epilogue, I don't really mind. But this one, I didn't think it was necessary. I feel like it kind of solidified their relationship. And I don't think it needed it. I don't think the pregnancy needed to solidify their relationship. I feel like they could have ended up together happy without her ending up pregnant. So yeah, but those are just my thoughts on that. And yeah, so I've read, so I'm a little annoyed with myself because I forgot to talk about a book that I've read. Desperate Measures by Katie Robert. This is part of her Wicked Villains series. This is the only one that I've read. This will probably be the only one that I actually read. This follows Jafar and Jasmine. So I think this series is like the villain gets the girl. This one was interesting. I think I give it 3 stars. I personally, the reason I'm not going to continue with this series is because the entire time I was reading this, all I could think of like in my head of Jafar was Jafar in the cartoon with like the wavy beard and like what is it? Is it a turban? But I couldn't take him seriously. I feel like I need to cut in really fast and say that I don't know why I could not picture him as a human being, because I did it perfectly fine with Jasmine, like picturing her like as a person, but I could not get cartoon Jafar out of my head. And looking him up to put that picture on there, I think it is so funny. But this is, her father passes away, or he's murdered by Jafar. He basically takes her and he's like, you're gonna be with me now. And she's like, that doesn't sound fun. But she like secretly wants to be with him. So it's like an enemies to lovers. There's also, at the beginning of this book, there is trigger warnings. Consensual non-consent sex. They have sex in the first chapter, and that was the only one that felt, while reading, like non-consensual sex. And so after that, it's very like much like, I don't know if it's necessarily talked about, but it is what happens in the book. There's not really much of a plot to this. It's just he's trying to take over her father's territory, and she gets kidnapped by Aladdin, who she was meant to marry. But he's the villain in this. I guess they're both villains. Aladdin is the villain as well as Jafar, but Jafar ends up taking her before Aladdin can marry her and murdering her father. So that's basically the story. And then there's just, like her Taboo series, there's just a lot of sex and not much plot, which I guess is fine when like you're just trying to like get through something. That sounds like rude, like, because I did like it, but like the Jafar, like the whole Disney thing kind of makes me uncomfy, I'm not gonna lie. This wasn't badly written. It wasn't bad at all. I actually enjoyed it. The first part I thought was more interesting. The middle part kind of gets slow to me, and then like the last like 20 pages I thought kind of made up for it. I really enjoyed the ending as well. It was like badass. girl in power. I really liked the ending. But yeah, I forgot to talk about this and I'm annoyed about it. So I also read this. I also forgot to talk about Bittersweet Melody by Kate Stewart, which is a novella that follows Easton and Natalie from reverse from the Bittersweet, I can't remember the name. The Drive in Reverse books. So basically in this, Easton is on tour a lot and Natalie is now the, the head of Speaks, the newspaper or magazine, and they kind of feel as if they haven't really had any time together, so they go on vacation to where they got married, had their honeymoon, and they invite their parents, or he invites their parents to surprise her. So yeah, that happens, and it's a 90-page novella, and I loved it so much. I really love them. I think they're great. Basically, in the novella, though, it starts out, and they're in this hotel room, and she basically says that she wants to have a baby, and that she's thrown her birth control away, and he gets really excited, and then she kind of starts overthinking it, and she's like, oh my god, like, you're never home, I'm gonna probably have to do it by myself, you're a rock star, and he gets really upset, and that's basically the premise of the novella, is them kind of being on, like, not on each other's good sides, but I think Kate Stewart just has, like, a really good way of making your heart break for the characters that you love, and I understood both sides of the argument, and all four of their parents, so Natalie's parents and Easton's parents, are there, and they give them both a lot of advice, and I just really loved it. I thought it was great, and the ending was great, and Kate Stewart she's probably one of my favorite authors now. Like, every time I read a book of hers, I'm just, like, blown away by how I feel at the end. Like, I'm usually, like, wow, that was so good, or I'm like, oh my god, like, sobbing. So I just really love her, and I really liked that one, too. So if you haven't read the Drive or Reverse books, I would read those, and then I would read this, but also the Finish Line, or not the Finish Line, the Ravenhood trilogy. Also, Method is so good, and no one talks about it. She has so many good ones. So yeah, that's it. It was good. Read it if you've read Reverse. I've only read 4 books. I've literally only read 4 books in the past month. Oh my god. But I'm going to tell you guys all of the books that I've tried to start reading over the past month or so. This one doesn't count, but I've been reading this since October, and I'm still only on chapter 4. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. I think the first 4 chapters were great. They were okay. I don't know why. I have no interest in reading this. I should just DNF it, but I'm not going to because I want to know what happens. The next, I think this, honestly, is what started my slump. Noble Prince by Devney Perry. Or is it Devney? Devney, yeah. Basically, this is a series. There's 6 books. This is book 4. Book 1, 2, and 3 are characters. Well, book 1 is obviously characters that we don't know, but book 2 continues the mystery of book 1, and then book 3 is the mystery that happens being turned into a movie. So we know the book 1, we meet the characters for book 2, or at least one character. We meet 2, but 1 is more towards the end. And then book 3, we know from book 1 and 2, except for the male person. He's like a movie star, small town. And then we get here, and the male character in this is in 2 and 3, but he's not in it much. Not enough for me to be, like, interested, I think. But the female main character is also in it, but she's only in the end of book 3, and I don't really care enough about her to move forward, I guess. I don't know. There's nothing that I think I will like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything going to be wrong with it, but I think that personally, if you're going to give a series, you have to at least have one of the main characters, like a standalone series, you're going to have to at least have one of the main characters. I guess this isn't a standalone series, you have to read them all together, but one of the characters, like, mystery, like, or get to know them more so that we're interested in their story, and I feel like she didn't really do that with these two characters. So, this kind of started my slump a little bit, and then I started Things We Never Got Over, and I got to chapter 8. There's nothing wrong with this. I was actually kind of enjoying it, and then someone was like, yo, they don't even kiss until, like, page 5,000, and I was like, are you joking? I'll go back to this eventually. I will go back to all of these eventually. I got to page 80 out of, there's a bonus epilogue, so 557. I got to page 80 out of 557. There's not even anything wrong with it. I just, like, I need, like, my friend calls them candy books, where you just, like, eat them up and, like, whip through them, and I think that's a really good word for it. Next is Walking Disaster. I bought this when I bought Beautiful Disaster, and I was like, I'll just read them back to back. But I finished Beautiful Disaster, and I was like, I can't do it. I read the prologue of this, and I was like, I cannot deal with this man's point of view. He was so insufferable in Beautiful Disaster. I can't deal with Walking Disaster. I cannot, because he is in fact a walking disaster. This man was wild. This man was a narcissist. He was psychotic. Like, he was just crazy. And can I do it? Probably. I'll probably whip through this when I start it. My friend started reading it. She's like, this shit is crazy. And you'll whip through this. But do I want to read it? No, I don't. So I haven't started it. Pen Pal. I've seen people talk about this like crazy. Like, they're like, oh my god, it's the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, okay, I've been staring at it. It's been on my shelf, and I've been like, let me read that. Why not? I think I got to page 8. Or, not page 8, chapter 8. Yeah, I got to chapter 8. How many pages is that? 41. So 41 pages of this. And I was like, spoiler alert, I read it. I read the spoiler because I was like, maybe it'll get me to read this, like, knowing what happens. But I figured it out because there was a scene where she is like, she looks in the mirror and there's a thumb-shaped bruise on her neck. And she puts a scarf around it, and then it ends up disappearing. Suspicious. And then at the beginning, she is in her house, and her maid comes in, and her maid, like, drops her groceries, and she's like, oh, you're staying in the house? She's dead. And I remember thinking, when I found out, like, when I read the bruise scene, I was like, her husband killed her. Because we start out the book with her at her husband's funeral. I was like, her husband killed her. 100%. There was another twist that I read that I will not share, but, it did make me want to read it. And then I read, like, a review, and it was, like, the pen pal, the person that they're writing back and forth, like, it's pointless to the story. Before I started reading, what I thought was going to happen was the pen pal that was writing her was going to get out of jail. I thought the pen pal was going to get out of jail and come to her and be like, hey, I'm your pen pal. And she was going to be like, what the fuck? And they were going to have a relationship. That's what I thought was going to happen, but that is not what happened at all. And I realized that after I started reading. And then the last book that I have started and have not finished, well, that's not true because I've started a lot of books on my Kindle and I have not, is Dig by A.S. King. The reviews on this are huge, like all 5 stars. I've heard it's fantastic. I literally have never seen a bad review on it. But I just couldn't get into it. I think I got 50 pages in. There's multiple point of views in third point of view, which I think Cassandra Clare writes like that. I can't remember, but I'm pretty positive. But it was just a lot to follow, and I don't think, considering I'm in a slump, I couldn't mentally follow what was going on. And I know that there's like a lot of political, psychological stuff that is kind of in this book, especially towards the end, because it's about 5 cousins wanting their inheritance, but the grandparents like not giving it to them, or their adult children. I can't remember. I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. So let me know if you've read this and it's like it's worth finishing. I'll definitely pick it up again. I just have no idea when. Should probably take it like camping in August, and like that's all that I should bring. So I think that's it. Pretty sure that's it. So yeah, that's it. Can I say that's it anymore? Thank you so much for watching. I also want to mention I have filmed the Beauty and the Baller and Princess and the Player video like 3 times, and I haven't been able to like put into words what goes on in those books. So I don't know if I'll ever film that because it's been over a month since I've read them. And I also, the Beautiful Bastard series, I finally finished that, and I'm going to review those as well, which took me very long to read. I think that took me, because I read Beautiful Secret, and I didn't like Ruby, so it took me over a year to read Beautiful, which is the last book in the series, because it's her best friend. But I ended up really loving that one because her best friend is hardly even in it, Ruby. So yeah, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. All of my social medias will be linked down below. If you would follow those, I would greatly appreciate it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe and all that jazz. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you next time. Bye.